Marcus' chin pressed his face against the cool metal of the observation deck window, watching the twin suns of Kepler 442 paint the sky in shades of amber and gold. The space station orbited lazily around the planet below, where purple forests swayed in winds he could not feel. 3 months ago, this view had been just another assignment? Now it felt like home. "You are thinking too loudly again." Zara's voice carried the musical quality of her people, the Veltar. Her words were soft, but carried a hint of amusement. Marcus turned to find her approaching, her scaled feet silent against the deck plating. She moved with the fluid grace of her species, tall and elegant, with deep blue scales that caught the station's artificial lights like scattered stars. "Sorry," Marcus said, though he wasn't really sorry. He loved when she teased him about his human expressions. "Just thinking about the briefing tomorrow." Zara's large, golden eyes studied him with the intensity that had first caught his attention months ago. The Veltar were known throughout the galaxy for their analytical minds and careful nature. They made excellent diplomats, scientists, and advisors. What they were not known for was forming close bonds with humans. "The hegemony grows bolder each cycle," Zara said, moving to stand beside him at the window. Without thinking, she curled her long, flexible tail around his waist, pulling him closer. The gesture was intimate among her people, something she had explained during their first week together. Their ships probed deeper into neutral space. Marcus felt the familiar warmth where her tail touched him. The Veltar communicated emotions through physical contact as much as words. Right now, her tail spoke of comfort, affection, and something deeper that neither of them had dared name aloud. "The briefing materials suggest they're testing our response times," Marcus said, placing his hand gently on her arm. Her scales were surprisingly warm, like sun-heated stone. Classic military probing. "They want to see how fast we can mobilize." Zara's tail tightened slightly around him, a gesture he had learned meant concern. "Your species sees patterns others miss," she said. "The Council values human tactical thinking more each day." Marcus had been assigned to the Joint Defense Station as a strategic advisor, one of only 12 humans in a facility housing over 3,000 beings from 47 different species. The Galactic Coalition had been skeptical about including humans at first. Earth had only made contact 8 years ago, and most species still saw them as newcomers, untested in galactic affairs, but humans had proven useful in ways no one expected. They saw connections others missed, anticipated problems that careful analysis overlooked, and adapted quickly to changing situations. Military leaders called it intuition. Scientists called it pattern recognition. Marcus just called it thinking like a human. "The Veltar see far more than humans do," Marcus replied, meaning it. Zara's people could process information at incredible speeds, see across multiple light spectrums, and remember details with perfect clarity. "You just think differently than we do." "Different," Zara repeated, her tail loosening slightly. "Yes, that is the word. Your mind works in ways that surprise me daily." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the sun slowly set behind the planet's horizon. This had become their routine over the past month. After shift duties ended, they would meet here. Sharing the day's events and simply enjoying each other's company, Marcus had never expected to find someone like Zara, growing up on Earth. He had dreamed of space and adventure, but never imagined forming such a deep connection with someone from another world. Zara was brilliant, kind, and patient with his questions about galactic culture. She made him laugh with her observations about human behavior, and challenged him to think in new ways. "Marcus," Zara said quietly, "there is something I must tell you." The tone in her voice made him turn to face her fully. Her golden eyes held an expression he had learned to read as serious concern. "The Council received new intelligence today," she continued. "The hegemony is planning something larger than simple probing missions. Our sources suggest they intend to claim this entire sector." Marcus felt his stomach drop. The Kepler 442 sector was strategically important, containing several habitable worlds and major hyperspace routes. If the hegemony took control here, they would effectively cut the Coalition's territory in half. "How long do we have?" he asked, Perhaps 2 weeks, maybe less. Zara's tail had completely unwrapped from around him now, hanging loose at her side. The Council is calling for emergency redeployments. All non-essential personnel will be evacuated to safer systems. Non-essential, Marcus repeated, understanding immediately. Which includes most of the cultural exchange staff and civilian advisors. Zara nodded, her scales dimming slightly in the way they did when she was upset. I am being reassigned to the Veltar home system. My analytical skills are needed to help plan defensive strategies. And me? Your military advisory staff. Your assignment depends on Coalition Command decisions. She paused, looking directly into his eyes. Marcus, there is something else. Something I have not told you. Marcus waited, sensing this was important. The Veltar do not form emotional attachments easily, Zara said slowly. In our culture, the gesture I make with my tail, the time we spend together, these things have deeper meaning than simple friendship. Marcus felt his heart rate increase. He had suspected as much, had hoped it meant what he thought it did. But hearing it spoken aloud made it real in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. Among my people, Zara continued, when someone curls their tail around another, it is a sign of deep affection and commitment. It means you are willing to share your life with that person, to face whatever challenges come together. Zara, Marcus started, but she held up a hand. I know this complicates things, she said. I know humans form attachments differently, and I do not wish to burden you with expectations from my culture that may not translate to yours. Marcus stepped closer, gently taking her hands in his. It doesn't complicate anything, he said. If anything, it makes everything clearer. Zara's eyes widened slightly. A reaction he had learned meant surprise among her people. I've been falling for you since the first week we worked together, Marcus continued. I just wasn't sure if what I was feeling was mutual, or if I was misunderstanding cultural differences. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Zara's tail slowly, deliberately, curled around his waist again, tighter than before. The war changes everything, she whispered. Not everything, Marcus said firmly. Not this. They held each other as the station's lights dimmed for the artificial night cycle, both knowing that morning would bring orders that might separate them across the galaxy. The next day's briefing confirmed their worst fears. Admiral Corvesh, a stern Altarian with crystal blue skin and silver eyes, stood before the assembled staff with news that sent ripples of concern through the room. Intelligence confirms the hegemony is massing a fleet of unprecedented size, the Admiral announced. Over 2,000 ships, including their newest Dreadnought-class vessels. Their target is this sector. Marcus felt Zara tense beside him where they sat in the rear of the briefing room. Around them, representatives from dozens of species murmured in their native languages, the universal translators creating a cacophony of worried voices. All civilian personnel and non-essential staff will be evacuated within 48 hours, Admiral Corvesh continued. Essential military and strategic personnel will be redistributed, according to operational needs. Marcus's assignment came through that afternoon. He was being transferred to the frontline command ship Resilience, where his tactical analysis skills would be needed for the coming battle. Zara's orders assigned her to the Veltar Strategic Command Center, 3 star systems away. That evening they met one final time at their observation deck. The twin suns were setting again, but this time the beauty of it felt bittersweet. I have something for you, Zara said, producing a small device from her utility pouch. It looked like a crystalline pendant on a simple chain. It is a communication relay. Our people use them to stay in contact across long distances. Marcus took the device, feeling its surprising warmth. How does it work? Touch it when you want to send a message, speak, and it will transmit to its paired device. She showed him an identical pendant she wore. The range is limited, but it should work within a few light years. Zara, Marcus said, I want you to know something. Whatever happens in this war, whatever orders we get, or where we end up, I want to find our way back to each other. She stepped closer, her tail wrapping around him one last time. In Veltar culture? There's a saying, distance is only space, time is only waiting. Love is eternal. I choose to believe this. Marcus leaned down and kissed her forehead gently. A gesture she had taught him was considered deeply meaningful among her people. Then we'll make it through this. We'll find each other again when the fighting is over. The next morning, Marcus boarded a transport ship bound for the front lines. Through the small porthole, he watched Zara's transport disappear into hyperspace, heading in the opposite direction. He touched the communication pendant she had given him, already missing the feeling of her tail curled around him. The war had begun, and it was fighting to rip them away from each other. But Marcus was human, and humans were famous thur. The final battle for the Kepler sector began at dawn. Coalition Standard Time. Marcus stood on the bridge of the Resilience, watching as 200 coalition ships faced off against the largest hegemony fleet ever assembled. The enemy had learned from their previous defeats and adapted their tactics. But Marcus had been counting on that. They're forming a defensive sphere, observed Dr. Venna, her multiple eyes tracking the hegemony formation on the tactical display. Maximum overlapping fire zones, no obvious weak points? Admiral Korvesh studied the display with his characteristic intensity. Your assessment, Human Chun? Marcus had been studying hegemony responses for weeks now, learning how they adapted to human tactics. They were smart, disciplined, and had good commanders. But they still thought like a traditional galactic military, and that was their weakness. They're trying to force us into a conventional battle, Marcus said. They want to use their superior numbers and firepower to overwhelm us in a straight fight. Which would succeed, General Thane rumbled from his position near the weapons console. They have 4 ships to our 1. Only if we give them the kind of battle they want, Marcus replied. He moved to the central display and began manipulating the tactical projection. But we're going to give them something they don't expect. The communication panel chimed with an incoming message. Marcus felt his heart skip when he recognized the encryption signature. It was from the Veltar Command Center. Marcus, Zara's voice filled the bridge, clear and strong despite the distance. I have completed the analysis you requested. The hegemony fleet's communication protocols show a critical vulnerability. Marcus had sent her the technical specifications of captured hegemony equipment 2 weeks ago, hoping her analytical abilities might find something human intuition had missed. Having her voice on the bridge, even transmitted across star systems, gave him strength. The enemy uses a centralized command structure, Zara continued. All tactical decisions flow through 3 primary command ships. If those ships were disabled simultaneously, their fleet coordination would collapse for approximately 18 minutes while backup protocols activated. 18 minutes. Admiral Korvesh repeated. Long enough to break their formation. More than that, Marcus said, an idea forming. Long enough to turn their strength against them. He called up a new tactical display showing the hegemony's defensive sphere from multiple angles. They're positioned perfectly to support each other, with overlapping fields of fire and coordinated movement patterns. But that coordination depends on constant communication. If we disable their command ships, General Thane said slowly, understanding dawning in his voice, their formation becomes a liability. Ships will be firing into their own fleet's movement paths. Exactly. But we need to hit all 3 command ships at exactly the same moment, from positions they won't see coming. Marcus outlined his plan with quick, precise movements on the display. It was audacious even by human standards, requiring split-second timing and perfect coordination across multiple attack groups. This requires our ships to operate independently for extended periods, Commander Sisk pointed out. Most species find such isolation ... difficult. Humans don't, Marcus said simply. We're used to being alone, making decisions without backup, adapting when plans fall apart. It's what we do. Admiral Korvesh was quiet for a long moment. Around the bridge, officers from a dozen species watched the tactical display, trying to understand how human thinking worked. Finally, the Admiral spoke. All ships, this is Admiral Korvesh. We are implementing Human Chun's final battle plan. All squadron leaders report to the strategy chamber immediately. The next 3 hours were spent coordinating the most complex military operation in Coalition history. Marcus found himself at the center of it all, explaining human tactical concepts to alien minds that processed information in completely different ways. "The key is not to overthink it," he told Commander Yish, a methodical Centauri who commanded the fastest ships in the fleet. "When your sensors go down and communications fail, trust your instincts. Look for patterns, anticipate what the enemy will do, and react faster than they can adjust. But without data, how can we make informed decisions?" Commander Yish asked, her forearms gesturing in confusion. "You make the best decision you can with the information you have. Then adapt when the situation changes," Marcus explained. Humans call it thinking on your feet. As the final preparations continued, Marcus received another transmission from Zara, this time. The message was personal. "Marcus, I want you to know something before the battle begins. The Veltar Council has been monitoring your tactical innovations throughout this war. They are impressed is not strong enough a word. They are amazed by human strategic thinking." Her voice carried an emotion that the translator couldn't quite capture. "You have shown that cooperation between our species creates something greater than either could achieve alone. When this war ends, there will be opportunities for humans and Veltar to work together in ways we never imagined." Marcus touched his communication pendant, wishing desperately that he could hold her instead of just listening to her voice. "Zara, when this is over, I want to show you something. On Earth, we have a tradition called marriage. It's when two people from the same species commit to sharing their lives permanently." He paused, gathering his courage. "I think we should create a new tradition. Something for people from different species who want to share their lives across the stars." The silence stretched for so long that Marcus wondered if the transmission had been cut. Then Zara's voice returned, softer than before. "Among the Veltar, there is an ancient ceremony called the bonding of distant stars. It has not been performed in centuries, because it was created for lovers separated by war or duty. When this battle ends, Marcus Chun, we will learn this ceremony together." The final battle began exactly as Marcus had predicted. The hegemony fleet held its defensive formation, confident in their superior numbers and firepower. Coalition ships approached in what appeared to be a standard attack pattern, following conventional tactics that any military academy would recognize. But as the fleets closed to combat range, the coalition formation suddenly broke apart. Human-led squadrons scattered in a dozen different directions, using techniques that seemed chaotic to traditional military thinking but followed patterns that Marcus had learned in 100 Earth battles. All human squadron leaders. "This is Chun," Marcus broadcast on an encrypted channel. "Remember, you're not just representing humanity today. You're showing the galaxy what we can do when we work together." The attack unfolded with the precision of a perfectly choreographed dance. 3 separate strike groups, led by human commanders and crewed by mixed-species teams, approached the hegemony command ships from angles that conventional sensors didn't cover well. Commander Yish's fast attack squadron used a technique Marcus had called running the maze, rapid direction changes that made them nearly impossible to target while closing distance. Lieutenant Torres, a human pilot with an intuitive understanding of three-dimensional combat, led her fighters through the gaps between hegemony capital ships, striking at weak points that careful analysis had missed but human instinct had found. The third attack group, commanded by Marcus himself, approached through a debris field left over from an ancient battle. The metal fragments interfered with sensors and provided cover, but navigating through them required the kind of rapid decision-making that humans excelled at. "Target acquired," Marcus announced as the first hegemony command ship came into range. "All ships, synchronize strike in 3.1. Execute." The 3 command ships died within seconds of each other, their communication systems overloaded by coordinated electromagnetic pulse weapons. Instantly, the hegemony fleet's perfect formation began to break down as ships lost contact with their central command. "Now," Marcus broadcast to all coalition forces, "hit them while they're confused." The next 80 minutes were chaos, but it was controlled chaos. guided by human tactical thinking and executed by crews who had learned to trust human instincts. Hegemony ships fired on their own allies as formations collapsed. Capital ships collided as their coordination protocols failed. The defensive sphere that had seemed impregnable minutes before became a trap for the forces within it. When the Hegemony backup command protocols finally activated, half their fleet was disabled or destroyed. The remainder fled in disorder, leaving the Kepler sector firmly under coalition control. "Remarkable," Admiral Corvesh said as the reports came in. "Total victory with minimal coalition casualties. Human tactical methods have exceeded all projections." Marcus barely heard him. His attention was focused on a new contact appearing on the long-range sensors, a small, fast ship with Veltar configuration codes. "Admiral," came Zara's voice over the communication system. "Requesting permission to come aboard." "Permission granted," Admiral Corvesh replied. And Marcus could have sworn he heard amusement in the crystalline officer's tone. Marcus met Zara at the docking bay, watching her emerge from her ship with the same fluid grace he remembered. She wore the deep blue robes of a Veltar diplomatic advisor, but her golden eyes were focused entirely on him. They stood facing each other for a moment, 3 months of separation. The command bridge of the Coalition flagship Resilience hummed with activity as Marcus stepped onto the deck for the first time. Officers from a dozen different species worked at their stations, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of clicks, whistles, and electronic tones that the universal translators worked to parse. "You must be the human tactical advisor," came a gruff voice behind him. Marcus turned to see a massive Krogan, nearly 8 feet tall and covered in thick, gray-brown fur. His species was known for their physical strength and direct approach to problem-solving. "I am General Thane, Ground Forces Commander." "Marcus Chun," he replied, extending his hand in the human gesture of greeting. The Krogan clasped it with a grip that could have crushed bones. But Marcus had learned to brace for such encounters. "I hear humans think differently," General Thane said, studying Marcus with small, intelligent eyes. "We shall see. Admiral Corvesh wants you in the strategy session in 10 minutes. Marcus made his way to the strategy room, a spherical chamber in the heart of the ship where holographic displays could show 3-dimensional battle scenarios. Already gathered were the senior staff, Admiral Corvesh, General Thane, Commander Sisk of the Engineering Corps, and Dr. Venna, a spidery arachnus who served as intelligence coordinator. "Human Chun," Admiral Corvesh acknowledged as Marcus entered. "Your tactical analysis of hegemony fleet movements has been forwarded to all department heads. I must say, your predictions have proven remarkably accurate." Marcus had spent his first week aboard the Resilience studying every piece of intelligence about hegemony forces, looking for patterns that others might miss. His report had predicted 3 separate probe attacks, all of which had occurred exactly as he anticipated. "Thank you, Admiral," Marcus said. "I've been working on something else that might interest you." The holographic display activated, showing the current positions of both Coalition and Hegemony forces. Red dots represented enemy ships, blue showed Coalition vessels, and yellow indicated neutral or contested space. "The Hegemony has been following traditional siege tactics," Marcus explained, manipulating the display to show fleet movements over the past 2 weeks. "They're trying to surround key systems and cut off supply lines. It's effective, but it's also predictable." Dr. Venna's multiple eyes focused on the display as her translator rendered her clicking speech into standard galactic. "Explain predictable, human." "The Hegemony has won dozens of campaigns using these methods." "That's exactly the problem," Marcus said, zooming in on the Hegemony's largest fleet concentration. "They're following a playbook. Look at their formation patterns, their timing, their choice of targets. It's all based on overwhelming force and superior technology." General Thane leaned forward, his massive frame casting a shadow over the display. "This is how military campaigns are won. Superior force, good positions, careful planning." "Usually, yes," Marcus agreed. "But they're not accounting for human tactical thinking because they've never had to fight humans before. Admiral Corvesh's crystalline features reflected the hologram's light as he considered this. What do you propose? Marcus touched his communication pendant unconsciously. Thinking of Zara, she had often said that humans saw patterns others missed. Now he had to prove her right. We stop fighting their kind of war and start fighting our kind, Marcus said. Instead of trying to match their firepower, we use misdirection, asymmetric tactics, and rapid deployment. We make them react to us instead of following their plan. Commander Sisk spoke up, his mechanical voice precise and emotionless. Specific recommendations? Marcus had been preparing for this question. 3 phases. First, we fake a major retreat from the Kepler sector, making them think they've achieved their primary objective. Second, we use their overconfidence to draw their main fleet into a position where their size works against them. Third, we hit them with coordinated strikes from directions they won't expect. Elaborate on Phase 3, Admiral Corvesh said. Marcus manipulated the display, showing hyperspace routes that most species avoided. The hegemony thinks like most galactic militaries. They use major hyperspace lanes, establish supply lines along established routes, and position their forces to control key jump points. Because that is the logical approach, Dr. Venna clicked. For most species, yes, Marcus said. But humans come from a death world. We're used to taking risks that other species consider insane. We can use unstable hyperspace routes, operate in hazardous space conditions, and survive in environments that would cripple other fleets. General Thane's eyes narrowed. You are suggesting we attack through the Maelstrom Nebula? Exactly. Marcus highlighted the nebula on the display, a swirling region of space that interfered with sensors and navigation systems. The hegemony knows it exists, but they consider it impassable. Their doctrine specifically warns against operating near it. Because it is dangerous, Commander Sisk pointed out. To most species, Marcus agreed. But human ships can be modified to handle those conditions. We can navigate by instinct and visual reference when sensors fail. We can operate in environments that terrify other species. Admiral Corvesh was quiet for a long moment. This plan carries enormous risk. Yes, sir, Marcus said. But safe tactics won't win this war. The hegemony has too many ships and too much firepower for a conventional battle. How confident are you in this strategy? Marcus thought about all the battles he had studied. All the historical examples of smaller forces defeating larger ones through unconventional tactics. He thought about Zara, somewhere across the galaxy, trusting him to help end this war so they could be together again. Confident enough to lead the first strike myself. Sir, that evening Marcus sat alone in his quarters, holding the communication pendant Zara had given him. The range was too great for normal transmission, but sometimes, late at night, he could swear he felt warmth from the device that meant she was thinking of him too. His door chimed, and General Thane entered without waiting for permission. The Krogan had to duck to fit through the doorway. I've been thinking about your plan, the general said, settling his massive frame into a chair that creaked under his weight. It is either brilliant or completely insane. Those aren't mutually exclusive? Marcus replied. Thane made a rumbling sound that Marcus had learned was Krogan laughter. True, I have seen the preliminary modifications Commander Sisk is making to the ships. Redundant navigation systems, enhanced radiation shielding, additional life support backups. Your species really did evolve in a hostile environment. Earth wasn't an easy place to live, Marcus agreed. But that taught us to adapt, to take calculated risks, to survive in conditions that would kill most other species? The crew is nervous, Thane said. They have never served with humans in combat. Many do not understand how your tactical thinking works. Marcus had noticed the sideways glances, the whispered conversations that stopped when he approached. What about you, General? Do you trust human judgment? Thane was quiet for a moment, his small eyes studying Marcus intently. I have fought in 43 battles across 7 star systems. I have seen brilliant strategies and foolish ones. Your plan has elements of both, but it also has something most battle plans lack. It accounts for the enemy's psychology, not just their capabilities. The hegemony expects us to fight like civilized species. You want to fight like humans. Is that a good thing or a bad thing? Thane stood, his massive form filling the room. I suppose we will find out. The Admiral approved your plan. We begin modifications tomorrow. After the General left, Marcus activated his personal terminal and began reviewing intelligence reports from across the sector. Somewhere in the data streams and tactical analyses, patterns emerged that only human intuition seemed able to detect. The hegemony was making small mistakes, overextending in certain areas, leaving gaps in their formations that traditional tactical analysis dismissed as insignificant. But Marcus saw them differently. Each gap was an opportunity, each overextension a weakness to exploit. He touched the communication pendant again, wishing desperately that he could speak with Zara. Her analytical mind would see aspects of the situation he was missing. Just as his intuition saw things her careful analysis might overlook, 3 weeks later, the modified coalition fleet gathered at the edge of the Maelstrom Nebula. Marcus stood on the bridge of the lead assault ship, watching swirling clouds of ionized gas dance across the view screen. Most of the bridge crew looked nervous, constantly checking their instruments and muttering prayers in their native languages. Sensors are degraded but functional, reported Lieutenant Yix, a young Altarian whose crystalline features reflected the nebula's eerie glow. Navigation shows several possible routes through the interference zone. Take us in, Marcus ordered. He was acting as mission commander for this phase, a responsibility that still felt surreal. 3 months ago, he had been a junior advisor. Now he was leading a fleet into one of the most dangerous regions of space. The ships moved slowly through the nebula, their modified systems struggling against the electromagnetic interference. Marcus found himself relying on instincts he didn't fully understand, making navigation decisions based on subtle patterns in the gas clouds that his conscious mind couldn't explain. How do you know which way to go? Asked